All right, here we are at Chapter 2 in Unit 8. We're on stock market data. Our objective today, I will use stock data to follow the daily progress of a corporate stock. Quite a bit of vocabulary here today. Make sure that you've reviewed that in the textbook before you get started with this video. All right, let's look at the first example. It says, what is the difference between the high and low prices on May 5th? So May 5th is this first one right here. And it's asking for the change between the high and low. Well, here is the high and here is the low. So if I take 52.60, which was the high, and subtract $49, which is the low, I find the difference between the high and the low to be $3.60. Please press pause, solve this, come back, and we'll work on it together. Okay, what is the difference between the high and low prices on May 12th? So May 12th over here, we've got high, we've got low. 51.40 minus 50.60. And I'm looking at a difference of 80 cents. Example 2, on May 12th, what was the actual volume of the XYZ shares posted? Write the volume in thousands. So if we go to the 12th and we see the sales and it's in hundreds. So in order to do that, we need to take the 32,000, but it's 32,000 hundreds. So we multiply it by 100 and we end up with 3.2 million. But it says to write the volume in thousands. So once I get it out there, I divide by 1,000, and we find that there are 32 thousands of shares that were traded on that day. Please press pause, go ahead and solve this, come back when you're ready and we'll work it through. Okay, so on this particular day, we had 28,000. We multiply that by 100, which is 2.8 million. Divide it by 1,000, and we get that there are 2,800 thousands of shares traded on that day. Example 3, at what price did XYZ Corporation close at on May 4th? Well, we know that the last was 52.20. And it was a change or an increase, because I don't see any sort of negative in front of it, of 261. So if I take the 52.20 and I subtract that 261, it'll get me back to the closing the previous day. And it's $49.59 was the previous day close. Go ahead and press pause, solve this, and come back when you're ready. Okay, what price did ABC Corporation close at on May 11th? Again, going to our last is $49.98. But in this particular day, you can see that the change was a loss. And so when it's a loss, we're trying to get back to the previous day. We've got to basically add back in the loss. So we're almost doing the opposite of what the sign tells us. And when we add those back together, we know that the previous day close was at $51.53. Okay, use the May 4th closing price from example 3 and the May 5th opening price to find the difference in the prices as a percent increase. So, when we look at it, the opening on the 4th was $50.10. And we can see this right here. So opening was 50.10 and the close was 49.59. Now the 49.59 we got from our previous answer in example 3. So coming here, we know that it is the closing price, or I'm sorry, the opening price was the 50.10 minus the closing price, which was the 49.59, meant a change of 51 cents. So when we're looking at the percentage, we're going to take the open price minus the closing price divided by the closing price. So we end up with 0.51 divided by 49.59, which comes to 0.0103. When I multiply that by 100 or move the decimal twice, I get 1.03%. It asks to answer it in the nearest hundredth. Remember here, this is the 10th spot, and this is the 100th spot. So 1.03% is our answer. All right, please press pause. Go ahead and solve this. Come back when you're ready. Okay, looking at this, on May 11th, the closing price, let's just go back a couple. May 11th closing price was or opening price, I'm sorry, was the $49.90. I know it's hard to see here, so $49.90 was the opening price. I know that the closing price was the $51.53. So remember, it's open minus close divided by close. So we're looking at that open price of $49.90 minus the closing price of $51.53, all divided by $51.53. And we end up with negative 0.0316, or negative 3.16% loss. All right, example 5. It says on May 6th, XYZ Corporation announced a decrease in earnings. This news caused the stock and price to drop. It closed at $44.37. Express the net change from May 5th to May 6th as a percent. So we're looking at the May 6th close minus the May 5th close, all divided by the May 5th close. So it's always the change divided by the original, and the May 5th would have been the original. So it says that it was $44.37 is what it changed at. If we look at our previous examples, we know that the last close, and we got that from example 3, was $52.20. And then we divide by $52.20, and we multiply that by 100 because it's asking us to express it as a percent. So when I multiply all of that through, I end up with negative 7.83 divided by 52.20, all times 100. When I take that, I'm going to kind of move it up here. I end up with 0.15, negative 0.15, all times 100, which then becomes negative 15%. All right, please press pause. Go ahead and solve this. When you're ready, come back. Okay, on May 13th, the XYZ Corporation announced another decrease in earnings, and the price in their stock dropped to $45.72. Express the net change from the 12th to the 13th as a percent. So the 13th was 45.72. We know from our last example that it was a close of 49.98 on the 12th, and then we divide that by 49.98. The whole thing multiplied by 100. And I'm going to go ahead and just do that in one fell swoop, and I end up with negative 8.5%. Now there was one more example here, but it deals with spreadsheets. We're not going to work on that one. And so for this chapter, we are done. Good job, everyone.